Seva Mining announced that it closed $15 million financing in December, completed a reverse takeover, First Mining Gold, to acquire the Cameron Gold Project at Northwestern Ontario in March. Seva is within the Fiore group of companies, led by well-known mining financiers Frank Giustra and Gordon Keep. Other companies within Fiore include Dolly Varden, West Red Lake Gold Mines, and Nations Royalty. CEO is Ranj Pillai. He is the former premier of the Yukon, as well as a mines minister. Ranj, welcome to Mining Stock Daily.
Thanks. It's good to be chatting with you again in a different role.
Ranj, let's talk about Cameron. Now, I see that this project has 1.25 million resource ounce. It is close to nearby mining operations such as Kinross's Dixie's, Coeur's Rainy River, and West Red Lake's Madsen, that I did mention is with Fiore. You were talking that this is going to be a direct shipping or works for Cameron. Explain what that is and why that might work.
Sure. Yeah, there's the Cameron project has a long history. I mean, it's, we were going through some documents over the last week where previous companies, we're talking 40 years ago, were communicating with the Prime Minister of Canada about the importance of this project. Because of cycles with commodities, there was starts and stops, but there's been a lot of work done on the project. I mean, there's about 118,000 meters of drilling that's been completed. There's quite a bit of infrastructure that's in place right now. And I think during that period of time, the early years, I should say, decades ago, there was this concept of building, a full mine infrastructure that would support the Cameron project. We've come along and taken a much different look at it. Now we have infrastructure to the south of us where you've got Rainy River, just purchased by Coeur in the New Gold acquisition. And then to the north in Red Lake, you've got West Red Lake, and you've got other activity that's happening. It's a very busy area. There's about $9.5 billion in M&A activity just in that region since 2020. So our view is to take a look at it and think, okay, how do we take the gold that we have on site, have a very, very minimal footprint inside the project area, get it out to Highway 71. So we've got a great road that goes about 20 kilometers long, that goes out to Highway 71, which is the road between Coeur, Ontario and Fort Frances, and then look to negotiate an agreement with Coeur to the south or West Red Lake to the north, where we can move our ore and then in partnership have a process. So a much different, capital expenditure, smoother operation, less impacts to the area, and something that we believe can have strong economics. So we're just kicking off now, and the last 90 days, it's really been meeting with the communities that are there, sitting down with First Nations leaders, introducing the concept and the project, and getting ready to do some more exploration over the next year. So, just starting with doing some drilling and getting some confidence in the numbers that we have.
You did mention that there is Coeur's Rainy River. I believe that's 88 kilometers away. You just also mentioned that Fiore's West Red Lake is another option. What is the state of discussions with Coeur right now, just regarding a possible arrangement?
It's early discussions. We've communicated out to the CEO of Coeur. We think that partnership would make a lot of sense. Coeur is changing what's happening on site at Rainy River over the next 36 months, going from open pit to underground. They've got a big mill. It's probably 4 times the size of the mill at West Red Lake. And, by all indications, they'd be looking to have, more rock to put through that mill in 3 years' time. And that timing could work well with us. But we also have another really interesting advantage in order to test our thesis, I'll say. We've got about 13,500 cubic meters off stockpile at a grade of about 3.5 grams. It's been tested by New Gold previously. It's been tested by West Red Lake, previous tests taking over the project and buying the project. And it's the equivalent of about $15 million worth of gold. But what it does, what it does do is it gives you the opportunity to test case what your operation would look like above ground, not what you'd be doing below ground in an underground mine. But it gives you the opportunity to move those truckloads off-site down Highway 71 and to do that, let's just use the example of Coeur, in partnership with Coeur, and move that into their mill, and for them to understand the geology they're working with, and for us to really show the region and the area, this is what it would look like if we were in operation now for like the next 10 years. So that's the first part of the conversation. It's really getting some alignment with Coeur or West Red Lake, having an agreement put in place so that in 2027, we are prepared to be able to move that stockpile. And of course, it's going to drive some revenue for us. It's going to drive some benefit for the communities. But moreover, it's going to you actually get to kind of test your mine, which most operations would never have that opportunity. But with this direct shipping ore model and the fact that we have something that's already ready to ship, it gives us a great opportunity to show folks how we would operate.
I guess, Ranj, it's always good to have optionality. So you did mention West Red Lake. I'm just wondering how much of an option that might be outside of Coeur. Is there kind of a different terms of mill right there, or a distance that has to be traveled? And also just kind of adding on to that question as well, too, you did mention that Coeur is moving, the Rainy River is moving from open pit to underground. So I guess they would have less of a mill throughput after that transition.
Yeah, so exactly. I mean, we know that that's sort of on that 3-year time horizon. When we look at the throughput numbers for Rainy, I think with West Red Lake, we've had really positive conversations. Their team, of course, is in the Fiore offices here in Vancouver, and I think the numbers are a little different because you're talking about 3 times the distance to drive, and their milling operation has more significant costs just because of the size of the mill. So I think we're keeping all our options open. Like, as anybody would know, we want to make sure that we look to see, as in this early stage of conversations, what's going to work best for us, what's going to work best for the other partner. And are there other options? Because there is a lot of different infrastructure, a lot of different mills that exist in that region. So at this point, we're just, early stage of getting things prepared on site. We've been doing road repairs, making sure all the infrastructure is in place, sitting down with First Nations where we can start to look at things like a preferred joint venture partner for the trucking part of the contract. We want to get out this year and just do some traffic studies to understand what the impact is on that area. What's the industrial traffic load already? What would this add to it? And at the same time, making sure that we have those different conversations. So, like, as you talk about optionality, with this team, we've got the stockpile that we can move for some early revenue and to test out the project. As I touched on, we want to get out there and drill. We think it's a big land package. It's 53,000 hectares. And, we believe that there's more to be found. And so we want to get out and do a bit of infill, but we also want to go out and do some searching with our team to see what else we can find and that we can add to the resource. But the third thing I would share with you is, when you've got the team behind us, when you've got, Frank and Gord, Frank Schuster and Gord Keep and Sean Kuhn, some of our biggest supporters and biggest shareholders are Frank Schuster and Sean Kuhn, and the support in the deal of where First Mining got behind the project from a standpoint of, putting a good deal for us to take it on. All of that and the Fiore success in the capital markets all leads to say we're hunting for other companies. And opportunities and projects. Like, so we think that we can grow from our existing land base. We can grow by putting a good DSO model, but we also can grow through acquisition. So every day is looking at all the options in front of us, but we like what's happening in Northwestern Ontario. We like the fact that companies like Agnico have come in and made a $10 billion commitment over the next number of years to Ontario, but also some of that money coming into the south part of the region that we're in right now. So if things make sense for us, and it looks like we should grow through acquisition, that's something that we're also going to consider.
There's a couple of pieces that I do want to get to on that regarding your drilling program, and then also M&A, because you do mention that specifically within your deck, Ranj. But just to finish with DSO as well, what is your permitting situation right now for actually doing that? How long would it take to get permits? And then what does that work like? Do you get a formal arrangement with company X, for instance, at that point, have a letter, and then at that point, then you're going and getting a permit? What's the timeline on that?
Yeah, look, from what I've watched already, First Mining did started the permit process, and we're quite close to acquiring that permit. So they had been in discussions with New Gold previous to the Coeur acquisition and our purchase of the project. So
sorry, Ranj, that was mentioned within the deck. That's your application contemplating hauling 30,000 tons to Rainy River, right?
Yes. And so at this point in time, look, we've spent time now just going back over the application. There's a few things that we think we might want to change. We're just looking at the original application that's sitting with the ministry. The size of the trucks that they were contemplating, maybe bigger trucks, make this more economical. There's a number of things that we want to take a look at. And we're still in those discussions with the communities, because the First Nation communities, we'd like to have a deep partnership on the project. So look, I think that, we could be able to have a permit by next year if there's alignment for 2027. I want us to be very patient and prepared as we go through this process. I'd be sort of with our team, I've chatted with looking for later in 2027 to be able to move the stockpile. But there's a couple of pieces, of course. It's making sure the application is wholesome and appropriate, making sure that we have that agreement with either a West Red Lake or a Coeur. And third, that we have finalized partnership agreements with the communities that we're working within, and that there's 4 communities there. That's Enigaming First Nation, 33, 37, and Whitefish Bay. So those conversations, some of them have gone farther than others, because we were just, of course, getting on the ground. There's an election in Whitefish Bay. We're just waiting to meet with their chief and council, and we've continued to have dialogue with those other communities. But we want everybody to be at the table together to have a sense of what the benefit can be from this. So that's where we stand now.
Let's talk about the drilling plan. What are the aims of what drilling you're going to be doing? How many meters are you planning right now? So I believe at Cameron right now, you have a 1.25 million resource ounce, and you also have underground workings at Cameron. What do you hope to achieve from the drilling?
Drilling is going to be twofold. It's, the application I just actually before our call today was on a call with their VPX, Carl Ginn. I think we're looking at about 25,000 meter drill application. We're looking at the first phase at about 10,000 meters. There's some work on right at the Cameron deposit that we want to undertake. There's some infill drilling that needs to be done. And then as we go out to the northwest of the property, there's 2 different areas that we think that, as our exploration team would say, they're almost like little jewelry boxes. It's the East Cedar Tree and Dubinsky targets. So we want to go out there. We think we can increase our resource by going out and seeing if there's more to be found in that area. So really trying to stay within the envelope of where we're at, going out to some areas where there has been some good results previously. And then I think we'd be at a point once we see what happens in that first phase of drilling. We've got collars that we've identified, but of course, as any drill program, you want to see what that first set of results look like. And if you want to be able to do some more significant drilling out to the northwest of the trend and see if we can actually add more ounces to the resource. And those are all key things. I know you'll probably want to chat about PEA in a second. And, we're just trying to make sure we've got something pretty special here already, but also the fact that we are, we think we can add to it over the next year and a half.
You're fine with your permits and again, also community for building those out?
Yeah, right now there hasn't been drill permits on the site in the last couple of years. So we are just in the midst of meeting with all the communities and we're about to submit permits in early July.
Are you planning a PA or a PFS for Cameron?
Yeah, it's a constant conversation with our team. We think that later this summer, starting a PEA is an important piece of work to do. Because when you look at the project, there has been PEAs done previously on the project, but at a much different commodity price. And I think when you look at this project and you think, okay, you look at what we have identified in our resource, I don't think it catches folks, their eye comparably to when I think of big projects across British Columbia and other places, even in the region. There's 3, 4, 5 million ounces in place. But I think that with the PEA completed, you're going to see that this particular project, with infrastructure so close and having the underground workings and the simplicity of what we're trying to accomplish here, is that it's just something that makes sense. It's something that can be achieved in a short period of time. And so, yeah, we're contemplating doing that work. We haven't started it yet, Michael, but it is something that, I would think in the very near future, we'll start to put the pieces together for.
Let's talk about M&A. You just made that point. You consider the Cameron project to be a simple and executable. I'm just, how do you view M&A right now? Do you view that as being specialists within the space? Obviously with Fiore Group and the acquaintance of it, with work that you're doing in Ontario. Obviously with gold prices, obviously with Agnico in there and the acquiring that they have been doing, the world's second largest gold producer right now. What makes sense for Seva to possibly acquire? How do you dance outside of those elephants right now? And then also, how do you kind of look at currently we're in the cycle of this precious metal price?
Yeah, I mean, like any team, you're looking for to find something that you can increase in value with. But for us, you caught the theme. I mean, we feel that this DSO model can be replicated. Ryan Brown, who is VP with our team on development, was key on the Manh Choh project in Alaska. He was with Kinross. He's a big investor in this project and is leading all of the thinking around how we prepare with the CSO model. And he, for a small junior company, he carries a really significant resume into this project. Probably, feel very lucky to have the executive team that we have because of their experience. So I think without, saying too much, if there's other projects where we can acquire, we see lots of value, it can be moved to production very quickly. The CapEx on site is manageable because you have a DSL model. That's sort of the criteria that takes up a lot of our thinking day to day. So we're looking around to see where we know there's mill infrastructure or there will be mill infrastructure and where there's those potential partnerships. And, you can dream and think about the fact that 2 to 3 DSO projects all happening in parallel you can get to some pretty significant ounces of production, and those are things that are exciting. And we'll continue to watch where we're at on the pricing, the commodity pricing. But right now, projects like that do make sense, and we're hunting for those projects.
Ranj, I'd kind of like to step back and kind of lean on your past experience regarding working as a premier, as being a politician, a successful politician up in the north with what you did up in the Yukon. There's a lot of mining companies I talk to, and you get a real sense that we're kind of in a window right now. We've got aligned governments that are very pro-resource right now. There's a real mood that you really kind of have to nurture. You have to nurture industries, and you have to start building again. And currently, the way I guess outside of data centers, there seems to be a willingness by the public to kind of go along or kind of support this, because we need to start building more. Are the mining executives right to kind of view this as a window? It's like a certain limited time of opportunity.
Yeah, I think they are. We would go to PDAC or, Roundup in Vancouver 10 years ago, whatever, let's say, even a decade and a half ago. You'd probably get a mines minister that would show up and give a speech. You might get a premier off Ontario, maybe, or of British Columbia, but those are things where people would be talking about it. Now, look, you walk into PDC and you've got a prime minister showing up, and you've got federal cabinet ministers. I mean, those are all indicative of like this pivot that you've seen in the country. When you think about what's happening in the U.S., you've got their entire defense strategy. Then essentially the nucleus of it is at the Department of War is about critical minerals and their access to get critical minerals. In Canada, we see what's happening as we go through each territory and province, the importance they're putting on mining. I mean, this is something that was always in place in the Yukon and will continue to be. Like with the new government in the Yukon, we'll continue to carry that on and do a good job of making sure that people know the opportunities there. And you've seen what's happening in British Columbia, where we have an office here, and I spend my time between Vancouver and Whitehorse. And when I'm here, I mean, you can see how relevant the work is that the mining sector is doing to the overall economy of British Columbia and how important it is. So yeah, I think there's a window. I mean, today we're here in the middle of FIFA, and this afternoon there's the FIFA mining conversation that's happening that I have to attend later this evening. I don't know if that would have been the same thing 10 years ago. So yeah, there is a window. A lot of people have been, banging this drum for a long time in the industry. And I think each and every day, the broader population comes to understand how important this industry is, how much it's evolved, and what it can mean for when I think about Canada, what it can mean for our country, and how lucky we are and blessed we are, whether it be from the precious metal space or it goes into the critical mineral space. The fact that the things that people are going to all corners of the world to look for are here, and we have a real opportunity for rural Canada. That's not. I'm just not sharing that to say this is about economic reconciliation, but as a former economic development minister for 9 years, if you sit at a table and you think about how do we ensure that there's vibrant economies for small municipalities, for First Nations development corporations and governments in rural Canada, which is essentially, the largest part of our land base in the entire country. That's not an easy nut to crack. It's not an easy nut to crack. There's those historical industries that have been there, forestry, important, but harder to sustain. Lots of changes in that, trade impacts, tourism, seasonality, great industry has its own impacts, but does it provide a constant workforce? Defense, yeah, we're going to see a big spend. We're going to see a wave of spending. Is it going to be sustained spending? No, it'll probably be a lot of front end spending. And then over time, there'll be the operations and that'll have an economic effect that will trickle into those communities. But when you think about mining, it is the industry that can continue to have our communities and towns throughout all of Canada continuing to thrive, having opportunity for people to stay in their communities, for First Nations folks that want to stay in their communities, continue to have their kids around traditional language, be part of the community, be around aunties, uncles, their family, and still have great jobs. And I think, so I think there's a window. I think it's incredibly important. And I think broadly people know that it's time to seize that. And hopefully the window is really big, because it needs to be really big for us to catch up on all the work we have to do.
Ranj, let's talk about your vantage point as being CEO. So, you spent years on the receiving end of mining companies, lobbying governments for faster permits, infrastructure. Now you're the one that we were talking about at the start of this interview, that you're making the pitch to government. How has your view changed now that you're the person that's doing the ask?
It was a lot of opportunity to learn being in that other role. We would come and set up during Roundup or PDC. I think Roundup always, like AME, always is the one that resonates the most with me. And we'd come from the Yukon and would be in Vancouver for the week. And you would set up in a hotel downtown near the conference center, and you would spend 40 straight hours, so not straight hours, like 8 hours a day, throughout the whole week. You'd almost maybe get over to see the conference, and you'd be on a cadence of every 30 minutes, you'd have a CEO with an executive team coming in and meeting with you and talking to you. And, that was the job, and it was really important to engage and understand their projects. But yes, it was an incredible learning experience, because there was lots of great mining leaders that were coming into the room, and, everybody presented themselves differently. They approached the conversation differently. And I think you try over a decade to, can't help but see what best practices are. So those are things I try to reflect on. But, I also understand from the regulatory side, there's a set of policy and structure that public servants have to adhere to. And they have lots coming at them. And so especially as this space continues to get busier and there's more activity and more permits and more action and more capital flowing into the space, it's probably the same amount of people, because we all know that folks don't like to see government grow. So you've got the same amount of people. It's probably, quadruple the work that's coming at them, with twice the pressure because of the timing. So I just try to approach it understanding that. And I think when you're respectful to people and you understand what's on their plate in the public service, that's important. I think there's lots of things from an infrastructure perspective that we were asked for. Some things we had the opportunity to do and to invest in the Yukon. Other things people probably would have liked to see haven't been built, but hopefully will be built. And, maybe, the current government or subsequent governments can do it, because you're also balancing healthcare, which continues to be the biggest expenditure for any government, education, energy across the country continues to be something that's an incredible weight and pressure on any government. So all of those things you're balancing, and at the same time, you've got a private sector, entity that says, look, if you build this for us or partner on building this with us. So we're lucky. We don't have at our project right now, this project, we're not in a position where we need a lot of infrastructure. We need some update, some updates to our camp infrastructure. We'll make a decision over time about maybe running transmission in. We've got a big line right at the end of our road. So it'd be about a 20-click road, or maybe we even just use independent power sources on site. So we don't have to ask for a lot. But I am helping other companies here at Fiore. I get to work with Rob McLeod on Cambria on the Ascot project. So there's times where I've been doing some work there, and there's work that we're undertaking in the US. So there are some other companies that I get to provide some support and strategic advice on. And that's the approach. It's just really understanding to be respectful and the reality. And I think understanding how governments fund their projects, what's going on with the federal government, how that money's flowing, where the pressures are, where the priorities are, having that in my mind as I go into the meetings, I think can help you be a bit more effective than sometimes folks coming in that don't have that background and are asking for things, that are probably really hard to support.
Lastly, bring it back to Seva. Ranj, what are going to be the milestones ahead? What are the particular pieces of news that investors can potentially look forward to?
Okay. Where I would say just keep an eye this summer. We've been very quiet. We wanted to make sure we spend time with our getting to know the communities, understanding their priorities, starting to build appropriate social capital with those communities. As we get into July and August, you'll see us start to put some news out about getting our infrastructure up to speed, making sure that there's work done on our road, on our camp. Then you'll see some activity around some field season work. That will then move us into a point where you'll see us getting ready to start doing some drilling. Parallel to that, as we have those conversations around moving that stockpile, I'm hoping to see later in the year, some sort of an agreement with one of the potential purchasers off our stockpile, our partners of our stockpile. Those will be key pieces. And then, we'll sit with our team and figure out when the right time is to start talking PEA. So those are all sort of 26 into the winter of 27. And I think those will give you an indication if we get to a place we're not pushing hard, we're not, putting too much pressure on ourselves or any of the local communities to get agreements in place. But when those agreements do come to fruition, we'll be, announcing those with our the 4 First Nation communities in the area. So just being very disciplined in our approach to this and being patient on the front end to build the right foundation, which will be required to build something special that'll be able to affect those communities in a positive way. It'll be a very positive thing for our shareholders. And I think it'll set a good, just a good symbol to that area of how real partnership, learning from at Fiore, the First Nations work we've done, whether it's Nations Royalty or Selkirk Copper, just taking that and starting to do that same type of work in Northwestern Ontario, like West Red Lake's done already.
Ranj Pillai, thanks for speaking with Mining Stock Daily.
Michael, thank you for having me. Great to be in discussion with you again.
The information presented should not be considered investment advice. Mining Stock Daily and its affiliates are not responsible for any loss arising from any investment decision in connection with the material presented herein. Please do your own research or speak with a licensed financial representative before making any investment decisions.